He stands at the rail as the hull settles into water made still by arrival. Marseilles answers with its familiar chorus. Gulls, carts, and the clatter of men who have done this 1,000 times and will do it 1,000 more. A merchant climbs aboard before the gangplank steadies. He searches the crew for one face and does not find it. A young man steps forward instead, sun-marked and sure-footed, his hands still stiff with salt from the wheel. Captain Leclerc died 3 days out from Elba. Fever took him fast. The cargo is whole. Every crate arrived, every seal unbroken. The merchant says nothing. He studies the young sailor the way a man studies unexpected strength, weighing him and finding the measure sound. Then he nods, and the harbor rushes back to life, filling the silence left by the news. Edmond Dantès has brought the Pharaon home with her masts intact and her cargo secure, carrying a captain's death as quietly as another line in the manifest. The merchant's eyes remain fixed on him. Below deck, the ship's accounts wait to be settled. Ink, ledgers, and the quiet ritual that makes a voyage official. Morrel reads the log himself, his finger tracing the route until it stops at Elba. You put in at Elba, why? The question comes from Danglars, the ship's supercargo. His voice is mild, his eyes are not. Captain Leclerc's orders. I carried a letter ashore to Marshal Bertrand and received one in return for someone in Paris. I never learned the name. You went ashore yourself? I did. I met the Marshal, and for a few minutes the Emperor himself spoke with me. He asked after the ship, after Leclerc, nothing more. Morrel laughs and waves a hand. Fortune seems to follow the young man as faithfully as gulls follow a galley, and the merchant turns back to the cargo count. Danglars does not laugh. He writes something in the margin and underlines it twice. The ledger's close. The cargo count is good, better than good, and Morrel's spirits rise with every figure before him. He calls Edmond back before the young sailor reaches the ladder. Take leave. See your father. I hear the winter treated him harshly, and there is a young woman in the Catalans who has, I am told, grown tired of waiting. Edmond's grin escapes before he can hide it. And when you return, Morrel says, setting down his pen, we will speak of the Pharaon, and of who might command her next. For a heartbeat, Edmond cannot answer. Then he is gone, racing up the ladder, across the deck, and down the gangplank, taking the steps 2 at a time like a man hurrying toward the life he has imagined through every mile at sea. Danglars watches from the rail. The harbor roars around him, yet he stands perfectly still, alone inside all that noise. The stairs to the old room are steep, and Edmond climbs them the same way he crossed the gangplank, fast and certain, 2 steps at a time. The door is not locked. It never was. Inside, an old man bends over a bowl of cold soup, his back to the entrance, a violin resting untouched against the wall. Father. The old man turns. For a moment, neither moves. They stand at the edge of a reunion desired for so long that belief arrives only with difficulty. Edmond, my boy, my son. He rises, then disappears into Edmond's embrace, smaller than memory, lighter than memory, and trembling. Nothing more needs to be said. The soup cools untouched. Dust settles on the silent violin. For one unguarded hour, nothing in the little room is broken, and the world beyond its walls ceases to exist. The room yields its secrets slowly, the way the tide uncovers a shoreline. The shelf that once held bread and oil is nearly bare. The good coat no longer hangs from its hook. The violin has rested untouched for far longer than dust alone can explain. Times were hard, that is all, his father says before Edmond can ask. A debt, settled. Nothing that matters now that you are home. He speaks lightly, with the practiced ease of a man who has chosen never to tell the whole story. Edmond lets the words stand. Even so, he cannot stop measuring what those quiet sacrifices must have cost. Year after year, paid by a father too proud to burden his son. He will repay every coin. The promise remains unspoken. A knock at the door breaks the quiet before it settles into something heavier. Caderousse fills the doorway, arms already spread, voice loud with the easy warmth of a man eager for any excuse to leave work behind. "Dantès! Back already, and a captain's rank coming, they say. Marseille will not know what to do with you." He claps Edmond on the shoulder, claims a chair without invitation, asks after the voyage, the cargo, and Leclerc. Sorry to hear it, truly sorry. Then, almost as an afterthought, while pouring himself a drink that was never offered, "And Mercédès, still waiting for you, is she? Pretty as she is, alone all this time, I would have thought some Catalan boy would have—" "She waited," Edmond says, reaching for his coat with a smile untouched by doubt. Caderousse smiles as well and drains his glass. He says nothing more, though the expression in his eyes fades a moment before the smile leaves his mouth. The tavern by the water smells of wine, rope, and the sea. Danglars sits alone near the window with a glass he has barely touched, watching the harbor like a man who expected better fortune from it. Caderousse drops into the chair across from him without invitation. "You will not believe the luck of some men," he mutters. "Captaincy, practically promised. A wedding, practically arranged, all in one afternoon." Danglars keeps his eyes on the window for another moment. When he finally looks up, the interest has already settled across his face. "Dantès," he says, not as a question. Neither speaks the name again. Neither turns away from it. In the silence between them, an unspoken understanding begins to take shape. On the rocks above the Catalan shore, the wind steals half of every word before it can settle. Fernand has chosen this place to ask the question once more. He has asked before, always with enough caution to retreat if hope failed him. This time there is nowhere left to retreat. "Mercédès, marry me. I have loved you since we were children, longer than I can remember loving anyone else. Edmond Dantès spends months at sea on every voyage. What life is there in waiting for a man who is never here?" She does not answer at once, and for a heartbeat, Fernand mistakes the silence for hope. "Edmond Dantès is the only man I will ever love," she says. "If he died, I would never marry. I would never seek another. There will never be anyone but him." The wind carries her words out across the water, leaving nothing behind for Fernand to hold. The path from the harbor climbs steeply, and Edmond takes it almost at a run. The first thing he sees is Mercédès on the rocks above the shore. The second is Fernand standing close beside her, close enough to halt his stride before the thought fully forms. Mercédès sees Edmond and hesitates not at all. She crosses the distance in quick steps and takes both his hands. "Edmond, you are home." Still holding him, she turns to the gathering of neighbors and fishermen, Fernand among them. "This is Edmond Dantès. We are to be married. If anything ever happened to him, if he were taken from me, I would not survive it. There would be no life after him. None." The words strike Fernand like a storm. He remains silent. Then, with every eye upon him, he steps forward and offers Edmond his hand. Edmond notices no shadow on this bright day. He takes the hand, returns the grip, and smiles with open gratitude. Fernand holds the handshake a fraction longer than courtesy requires. Then he releases it, turns away, and walks down the path with measured steps, hiding his face before anyone can read it. The tavern is nearer than home, and far easier for Fernand to face. He finds Danglars and Caderousse still at their table, the bottle lower than it was an hour before. Caderousse sees his expression and laughs before he can stop himself, not cruelly, but with the careless amusement of a man who is drunk enough to mistake sorrow for entertainment. "Refused, were you? Dantès will marry her himself, and not only that, off to Paris next, on some errand for the dead captain, a sealed letter for an address even he does not know. A captaincy, a bride, and secret business in Paris, all in the same week." Danglars lowers his glass to the table. He does not ask for the story again. The stillness that settles over him reveals he has already heard all he needed to hear. The tavern door swings wide, and for a moment the room fills with sunlight and laughter that have nothing to do with the three men in the corner. Edmond and Mercédès enter arm in arm, breathless, sharing a joke that belongs only to them. "Wine for everyone," Edmond calls, already pressing coins into the innkeeper's hand before anyone can object. "We are to be married on Sunday. Every soul here is invited. Caderousse, Danglars, and Fernand too, wherever he may be. Everyone." Mercédès, and draws him back toward the street before he can call out another name. A moment later, they are gone again, leaving the door to drift shut behind them. The wine Edmond bought waits untouched upon the table. No hand reaches for a glass. For a long while, no one speaks. The silence breaks when Danglars speaks, his voice stripped of the lazy ease it carried only an hour before. "There are ways," he says, turning his glass between his fingers without meeting another gaze, "to remove a man without ever touching him. An anonymous denunciation. Call him a Bonapartist agent. Mention the letter from Elba. He would be arrested before the wedding, questioned, and held. No one would know who wrote the accusation. No one need die," he adds with quiet restraint. The softness of the words makes them more dangerous, offering imprisonment as though it were an act of mercy instead of ruin. Fernand remains silent, yet his eyes no longer linger on the door. Caderousse fills his own glass again and leaves the others empty. Nothing more than a scrap of paper is required, and the innkeeper produces one without question. To him, it is an ordinary request. Danglars writes with his left hand. Even through the haze of wine, Caderousse notices that much. The pen moves quickly, guided by thoughts long prepared. Edmond is a good man," Caderousse mutters. "He brought me a barrel of wine for nothing, only because—" "Drink your wine, Caderousse," Danglars replies with measured calm. He folds the paper into neat quarters and places it between them. For a moment it rests on the table, small and harmless in appearance, no different from a bill or a friendly note. Then Danglars crushes it in his fist and tosses it into the corner with the refuse. It does not resemble something abandoned. It resembles something waiting. The conversation drifts elsewhere. Danglars orders another bottle, asks Caderousse about tailoring, and before long, the crumpled paper in the corner has slipped from every mind but one. Fernand has scarcely spoken since taking his seat. He has not needed words. He waits until Danglars is absorbed in another sentence, until no eye remains on the shadowed corner. Then he bends, with the casual motion of a man retrieving something misplaced, and his hand closes around the letter. No one notices him pocket it. No one notices him rise, leave payment for his wine, or step into the fading daylight alone, carrying an object that had not existed an hour before. The door settles shut behind him without a sound. By the time the wedding party gathers at La Réserve, the letter has already begun its quiet journey, though no one seated among the bread, fish, and bottles of local wine could imagine it. The toasts begin before the ceremony. Old Dantès, dressed once more in his best coat, cannot stop brushing a hand across his son's sleeve, reassuring himself that the moment is real. Mercédès' mother weeps openly. Caderousse, deep into his cups, launches into a toast so lengthy that Morrel gently guides him back to his chair. Edmond rises with his glass, and the room falls still. 1 hour, he says, his smile bright enough to transform his face. 1 hour, and Mercédès will be my wife. I have never known such happiness, not even on the day I first took the Pharaon's wheel. Laughter sweeps across the tables. Glasses rise again. Another round of toasts follows. Only Fernand remains unmoving at the far end of the room. His glass stays lowered, his voice absent, and amid all the celebration, his silence alone refuses to join the feast. The door of La Réserve opens for the second time that hour, and no one mistakes the newcomers for servants bringing more wine. Soldiers. 4 of them, then 6, filling the doorway with a presence the room has never held before. Behind them stands a man in the dark coat of the magistrate's office, moving with the measured calm of someone certain the outcome is already decided. For a moment, nothing happens. The toast Caderousse was halfway through dies in his throat. Old Dantès still grips his son's sleeve. The fiddler's bow hangs an inch above the strings. Edmond Dantès. The magistrate does not raise his voice. He does not need to. You are charged with conspiracy against the person of the king, correspondence with the usurper Bonaparte, and the carrying of treasonous letters from the island of Elba. You will come with us. The soldiers step forward before the room can absorb the words. Hands close around Edmond's arms, not harshly, but with practiced certainty. There is some mistake, Edmond says, his voice still bright, still carrying the confidence of a man only an hour from his wedding. I have done nothing. Ask Morrel, ask anyone. No reply comes. The soldiers have already turned him toward the door. Edmond! Mercédès' cry cuts through the room like a struck bell and lingers after the door closes behind him, leaving only the shattered remains of a wedding that, moments before, had seemed untouched by misfortune. No one changes out of wedding clothes. The ribbons remain tied. The table stays laid. Glasses stand half full where their owners abandoned them. Mercédès sits where Edmond left her. Old Dantès remains in his chair, the hand that rested on his son's sleeve now suspended over empty air before falling quietly into his lap. The news arrives before evening, carried from mouth to mouth until it reaches the room with all warmth stripped away. The charge is conspiracy, treason, not the sort of accusation that ends with a misunderstanding or a brief confinement. They would not arrest a man for nothing, a neighbor says with awkward sympathy. There must be some truth in it. No answer follows. The words find no place to settle. Mercédès does not weep. Old Dantès does not speak. They remain surrounded by the remains of the celebration, separated by only a few feet and by a silence that neither knows how to cross. By morning, the harbor has absorbed the scandal, as it absorbs every disturbance. A ripple passes across the surface, then the water closes again, while the gulls continue their endless circles. Caderousse has not slept. He finds Danglars near the customs house, and the question escapes in a low, uncertain, "That letter, the one you wrote at the tavern, surely it could not have led to this." "I wrote nothing that was not already true," Danglars replies without meeting his eyes. "A man went to Elba. A man carried a letter from the Emperor's marshal. Those are facts, Caderousse. What others choose to do with facts belongs to their own consciences." He lets the silence linger before speaking again in an almost companionable tone. And it would be wise not to mention how much wine was flowing that afternoon. A man deep in his cups can hardly trust his own memory. By the end of the week, the Pharaon sails under another captain, whose commands sound entirely at home on her deck. Danglars watches from the place where Edmond once stood, his gaze fixed on a harbor that offers no sign of what it has taken away.